Then you have to make me co-host. My God, you डरावed me. बस just about to start.
You have to be video on. Nikki, you're muted.
Everyone. Shivangla, what's happened?
What's happened?
Are you have to start reading now?
1 second, you have to say, na, you were muted, so I don't know when to start. I'll start.
Wait, hold
I'm
on.
waiting for your this thing.
Okay, we are reading the Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield. We are chapter 3, Matter of Energy, page 66 of the book and page 37 of the PDF.
Sarah was standing beside me. This is perfect, she said. Look, can you see that? What? They're projecting their energy onto the plants. I stared intently at the scene but could not detect. I can't see anything, I said. Squat down, lower then, Sarah said, and focus on the space between the people and the plants. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of light, but I concluded it was just an after image or my eyes playing tricks on me. I tried several more times to see something, then gave up.
So now what
I
happens?
can't do it,
She is
I
doing
said,
it.
standing.
Shimangla, 1 second. What is happening is it's dusk, and it's the best time for us to be able to actually see the energy fields of the plants. Now, this you can easily do actually if you defocus your eyes and actually just look 6 inches behind what you're looking at, and you can actually see that field. The first layer is pretty easy to see. Most of the people who attend the energy field and the Vastu workshop, they actually see this. Okay, so now it takes a little bit of practice because the defocusing of the eyes takes a little practice to actually just do it. So naturally he was trying, but no one was really instructing him on how to do it. So he could not really see it.
I can't do it, I said, standing. Sarah patted me on the shoulder. Don't worry about it. The first time is the most difficult. It usually takes some experimenting with the way you focus your eyes. One of the meditators looked over at us and brought his index finger up to his lips, so we walked back towards the building. Are you going to be here at Vicient long? Sarah asked. Probably not, I said. The person I'm with is looking for the last part of the manuscript. She looked surprised. I thought all of it had been located, though I guess I wouldn't know. I've been so engrossed in the part that pertains to my work that I haven't read much of the rest. I instinctively reached for my pants pocket, suddenly uncertain where Sarah's translation was. It was rolled up in my back pocket. You know, Sarah said, we found two periods of the day most conducive to seeing energy fields. One is sunset, the other is sunrise. If you want, I'll meet you at dawn tomorrow and we'll try again.
So again, there are two power points. Okay, it is half an hour before sunrise and half an hour before sunset are power times when when the energies are very very powerful. And at that time, if you're doing any kind of a spiritual practice, it always works a little better. And that's why the concept of Brahm Muhurat, you actually get up, get ready, be ready for that particular, that half an hour period before the energy starts to move.
See if you can see this, Sarah said. क्या हो गया? Sarah turned and grabbed Phil by the arm and then slowly stepped away from me so that their bodies were perhaps 10 feet away. Surrounding their upper torsos was a white pinkish field of energy.
I think you missed a page, Shimangla.
I am reading, I think we've gone down.
Where are you reading from?
I'm reading from the iPad.
Oh, you're reading from the iPad. 1 second, let me handle this one.
Niket, I'm not being able to handle this.
Okay, let me handle it. It's okay.
I'll do it from the book then, don't worry.
No, you read from here. It's okay. Wait. Yeah, okay. So I'm the person looking for the last part of the manuscript.
She reached out for the folder. That way, she continued, I can make you a copy of this translation and you can take it with you. I pondered this suggestion for a few seconds, then decided it couldn't hurt. Why not? I said. I'll have to check with my friend though and make sure we have enough time. I smiled at her. What makes you think I can learn to see this stuff? Call it a hunch. We agreed to meet on the hill at 6 a.m., and I started the 1 mile trek to the lodge alone. The sun had completely disappeared, but its light still bathed the grey clouds along the horizon in hues of orange. The air was chilly, but no wind blew. At the lodge, a line was forming in front of the serving bar in the huge dining room. Feeling hungry, I walked towards the head of the line to see what food was being served. Will and Professor Haynes were standing near the front, talking casually. Well, Will said, how did the afternoon go? Great, I said. This is William Haynes, Will added. Yes, I said, we met earlier. The professor nodded. I mentioned my early morning rendezvous the next day. Will saw no problem as he wanted to find a couple of people he hadn't talked to yet and didn't anticipate leaving before 9 a.m. The line moved forward then, and the people behind us invited me to join my friends. I stepped in beside the professor. So, what do you make of what we are doing here? Haynes asked. I don't know, I said. I'm trying to let it soak in a little. The whole idea of energy fields is new to me. The reality of it is new to everyone, he said. But the interesting thing is that this energy is what science has always been looking for, some common stuff underlying all matter. Since Einstein, particularly physics, has sought a unified field theory. I don't know if this is it or not, but at the very least, this manuscript has stimulated some interesting research. What would it take for science to accept this idea? I asked. A way to measure it, he said. The existence of this energy is not that foreign, actually. Karate masters have talked about an underlying chi energy responsible for their seemingly impossible stunts of breaking bricks with their hands and of being able to sit in one place unmoved with four men trying to push them over. And we've all seen athletes make spectacular moves, twisting and turning, hanging in the air in ways that defy gravity. It's all the result of this hidden energy that we have access to.
Okay, so we can actually feel this energy also. Did we do it last time, feeling the energy?
No,
Okay, can we have the videos on, please? Let's feel the energy. We do this in the energy field workshop and we do this in the excursion workshop also. Can we have some hands? Just see some videos, please. Yeah. Let's switch on the videos. So what you all need to do is you press in the center of your palm, press in the center of your palm, press in the tops of the fingers. And gently, just about 6 inches apart, just start rotating your palms like this, the way I'm doing. Very gently. So soon you will find, as if there's a pressure between your palms, or there's a tingling feeling, or there's like air is moving between the palms. Gently move it. Can you feel it?
Yes, yes, Bhaiya. It's
Okay,
like a
so
ball.
that's
It
that's that energy. That's that chi that they are talking about. So you felt it, and there's a way of seeing it also. I don't know how far it will be possible, but you all can actually see it also. If you have a white background and you put your hands like this, and you focus your eyesight 6 inches behind your fingers
yeah.
against the, let's see, the sky or a white screen or something, you all will be able to see that haze which is there. I don't know, because everyone is in a different place, very difficult to assess. But basically, you can feel it and you can actually see it also. चलिए.
शैडो जैसा दिखता है.
हाँ, exactly. That's it.
Of course, it won't really be accepted until more people can actually see it themselves. Have you ever observed it? I asked. I observed something, he said. It really depends on what I've eaten.
So now this comes back to our tamas, rajas, and sattva. Now the sattvic people, the people who are eating sattvic food, will be able to see that field better because their field is also very subtle.
How so? Well, the people around here who readily see these energy fields eat mostly vegetables, and they usually eat only these highly potent plants they've grown themselves.
So now again, they are growing the plants themselves and then consuming them. And while the plants are growing, they are sending love energy and they are sending healing energy to the plants. Now the plant is accepting it, growing, and then they are consuming that energy. So there's a total cycle of give and take, give and take, give and take. It's not only give. And that again raises their energy level and their field so that they can perceive these energies.
He pointed ahead to the food bar. This is some of it. Though thank goodness they serve some fish and fowl for old guys like me who are addicted to meat. But if I force myself to eat differently, yes, I can see something. I asked him why he didn't change his diet for longer periods of time. I don't know, he said. Old habits die hard. The line moved forward and I ordered only vegetables. The three of us joined a larger table of guests and talked casually for an hour. Then Will and I walked out to the jeep to remove our gear. Have you seen these energy fields? I asked. He smiled and nodded. My room is on the first floor, he said. Yours is on the third, room 306. You can pick your key up at the desk. The room had no phone, but a lodge attendant I saw in the hallway assured me someone would knock on my door at 5 a.m. sharp. I lay down and thought for a few minutes. The afternoon had been long and full, and I understood Will's silence. He wanted me to experience the third insight in my own way. The next thing I knew, someone was banging on the door. I looked at my watch, 5 a.m. When the attendant knocked again, I said thank you in a voice loud enough for him to hear, then rose and looked out the small frame window. The only sign of morning was a pale glow of light towards the east. I walked down the hall and showered, then dressed quickly and went downstairs. The dining room was open and a surprising number of people were moving about. I ate only fruit and hurried outside. Strands of fog drifted across the grounds and clung to the distant meadows. Songbirds called one another from the trees. As I walked away from the lodge, The very top of the sun breached the horizon towards the east. The color was spectacular. The sky was a deep blue above the bright peach horizon.
So now, when we get into appreciation and especially appreciation of nature, our ability to perceive these energies starts to get enhanced.
I arrived at the knoll 15 minutes early, so I sat down and leaned against the trunk of a large tree, fascinated by the web of gnarled branches growing out above my head. In a few minutes, I heard someone walking towards me along the path, and I looked that way, expecting to see Sarah. Instead, I saw someone I didn't know, a man in his mid 40s. He left the path and walked my way without noticing me. When he was within 10 feet, he saw me with a start, which made me flinch also. Oh, hello, he said in a rich Brooklyn accent. He was dressed in jeans and hiking boots and looked exceptionally fit and athletic. His hair was curly and receding. I nodded. Sorry about walking up on you so suddenly, he said. No problem. He told me his name was Phil Stone, and I told him who I was and that I was waiting for a friend. You must be doing some research here, I added. Not really, he replied. I work for the University of Southern California. We're doing studies in another province on the rainforest depletion. But whenever I get the chance, I drive over here and take a break. I like hanging out where the forests are so different.
So again, the energy field of the forest in this Vincent area were totally different. So any person who's sensitive could understand that he can come there to rejuvenate.
He looked around. Do you realize some of the trees here are close to 500 years old? This is truly a virgin forest, a rare thing. Everything is in perfect balance, the larger trees filtering the sunlight, allowing a multitude of tropical plant life to thrive underneath. The plant life in a rainforest is old too, but it grows differently. It's basically jungle. This is more like what an old forest looks like in a temperate zone, such as in the United States.
So again, whenever nature creates its own balance, so in this area, nature has gone into total equilibrium. So everything is working very well together.
I've never seen anything like this there, I said. I know, he said. Only a few remain. Most of the ones I know of were sold by the government to lumber interests, as though all they could see in a forest like this is board feet of lumber. Damn shame that anyone would mess with a place like this. Look at the energy. You can see the energy here? I asked. He looked at me closely as though deciding whether to elaborate. Yes, I can, he said finally. Well, I haven't been able to, I said. I tried yesterday when they were meditating with plants at the garden. Oh, I couldn't see fields that large at first either, he said. I had to start by looking at my fingers. How do you mean? Let's move over here, over there, he said, pointing to an area where the trees parted slightly and blue sky showed through overhead.
So now
I'll
again,
show
as
you.
I told you, that when you put your hands and you focus it with a white background or you focus it on the sky, that is when it becomes easier for us to see the field. That's exactly what he's telling him here to do.
When we arrived, he said, lean back and touch the tips of your index fingers together. Keep the blue sky in the background. Now separate the tips about an inch and look at the area directly between them. What do you see? Dust on the lens of my eye. Ignore that, he said. Take your eyes out of focus a little and move the tips closer, then further apart. As he talked, I moved my fingers around, unsure what he meant by taking my eyes out of focus. I finally placed my gaze vaguely on the area between my fingers. Both fingertips were slightly blurry, and as this happened, I saw something like strands of smoke stretching between the tips. Good grief, I said, and explained what I saw. That's it, he said. Now just play with that a while. I touched all four fingers together, then my palms and forearms. In each case, I continued to see streaks of energy between the body parts. I dropped my arms and looked at Phil. Oh, you want to see mine? He asked. He stood up and stepped back a few feet, positioning his head and torso so the sky would be directly behind him. I tried for a few minutes, but a noise behind us broke my concentration. I turned and saw Sarah. Phil stepped forward and grinned broadly. Is this the person you've been waiting for? As Sarah approached, she too was smiling. Hey, I know you, she said, pointing at Phil. They embraced warmly, then Sarah looked at me and said, Sorry I'm late. My mental alarm didn't go off for some reason. But now I guess I know why. It gave you two a chance to talk. What have you been doing?
So now again, synchronicity, right? And also accepting the flow. She could have really cursed herself that my mental alarm didn't go, why didn't it work, and all that. But then she realized that because she didn't come, these two had a chance to talk. So as we get into the flow, we start allowing things to happen rather than forcing them to happen. Okay, so that allowing starts to come into the picture.
He just learned how to see the fields between his fingers, Phil said. Sarah looked at me. Last year, Phil and I were up here at this very spot learning to do the same thing. She glanced at Phil. Let's put our backs together. Maybe he can see the energy between us. They stood back to back in front of me. I suggested they move closer and they stepped towards me until the space between us was about 4 feet. They were silhouetted against the sky, which was still a dark blue in that direction. To my surprise, the space between them looked lighter. It was yellow or yellowish pink. He sees it, Phil said, reading my expression. Sarah turned and grabbed Phil by the arm, and they slowly stepped away from me so that their bodies were perhaps 10 feet away. Surrounding their upper torsos was a whitish pink field of energy. Okay, Sarah said seriously. She had walked over and crouched down beside me. Now look at the scene here, the beauty.
So again, the more you focus on beauty, the more potent you can, I mean, the more better you can see the energy field.
I was immediately awed by the shapes and forms around me. I seemed to be able to focus on each of the massive oaks in a total way, not merely on one part, but on the whole form at once. I was immediately struck by the unique shape and configuration of limbs each displayed. I looked from one to the other, turning all around. Doing this somehow increased the feeling of presence each oak exuded to me, as though I was seeing them for the first time, or at least fully appreciating them for the first time.
So there are many things, that we don't notice. And the more in the flow we become, the more we actually start to notice.
Suddenly, the tropical foliage underneath the huge trees attracted my attention. I again looked at the unique form each plant exhibited. I also noticed the way each type of plant grew together with others of its own kind in what struck me as little communities. For instance, the tall tree type plants were often encircled by small philodendrons which themselves were poised among even smaller fern like plants. When I looked at these mini environments, I was again struck by the uniqueness of outline and presence.
So again, there was always harmony. There's a system behind the chaos.
Less than 10 feet away, a particular foliage plant caught my eye. I had often owned just this type as a house plant, a particular variegated form of philodendron. Dark green, its foliage branched out to about 4 feet in diameter. The shape of this plant seemed perfectly healthy and vibrant. Yea, focus on that one, but loosely, Sarah said. As I did so, I played with the focus of my eyes. At one point, I tried to focus on the space 6 inches to one side of each physical part of the plant. Gradually, I began to pick up glimpses of light. Then, with a single adjustment of my focus, I could see a bubble of white light encircling the plant.
So again, this kind of encircling you can also see on stage performers, because there's a lot of bright light and you can actually see the field around them. You can perceive it.
I'm seeing something now, I said. Look around some, Sarah said. I stepped back in shock. Around each plant within my vision was a field of whitish light, visible yet totally transparent, so that none of the plant's color or form was obscured. I realized that what I was seeing was an extension of each plant's unique beauty. It was as though first I had seen the plants, then I had seen their uniqueness and presence, and then something had amplified in the pure beauty of their physical expression, at which time I had seen the energy fields.
So again, as he stepped back and he is already in that state of consciousness, so now he can see all the plant's energy fields.
See if you can see this, Sarah said. She sat down in front of me and faced the philodendron. A plume of the whitish light encircling her body erupted outward and engulfed the philodendron. The diameter of the plant's energy field, in turn, broadened by several feet.
So now she's projecting energy to the plant. The plant is receiving that energy and the energy field of the plant increases. Now, this is true for inanimate objects also. Let's say you hit a table with, malice. The energy field of the table will shrink, and we can actually show this using the antenna. And if you touch the table with love and affection, with care and concern and compassion, you'll find that the energy field of the table will go up. So just imagine if a non-living entity or a non-living item can actually perceive and feel these energy fields. Just imagine what living human beings can feel, or animals, or even plants for that matter. Okay, so this is very true, and it is absolutely there. There's another book, The Energy Experiments, and they've done so many experiments of this kind, and they've actually proven it using various methods to say that yes, these energy fields actually exist.
Damn, I exclaimed, which provoked laughter between the two friends. Soon I was laughing myself, conscious of the peculiarity of what was happening, but feeling absolutely no uneasiness at seeing quite readily phenomena I had totally doubted minutes earlier.
So now what
I
happened?
re-
They gave him some information, they gave him some knowledge. Now, till he had the knowledge and he had not experienced it, it didn't become wisdom. Now he had the knowledge, he listened to them, he has that experience. Now, if anyone tells him that no, that is not possible, will he believe it? No, because it's his experience. He has seen it for himself. Now he's not, no one is going to be able to shake his this thing that he doesn't, that it exists or it doesn't exist. And this is the basic problem, that most of these investigators who want to investigate stuff, they don't raise their own consciousness level, or they're not willing to actually become aware or see things. So when they're not able to do that, naturally they're not going to see it. So they are going to say that it does not exist.
I had totally doubted minutes earlier. I realized that the perception of the fields, rather than evoking a surrealistic sensation, actually made the things about me seem more solid and real than before. Yet, at the same time, everything around me seemed different.
So now his
You,
perception has shifted, right? So naturally, everything looks different because the way and the level at which he's perceiving things has taken a shift.
Yet, at the same time, everything around me seemed different. The only reference I had for the experience was perhaps a movie which enhanced the color of a forest in order to make it seem mystical and enchanted. The plants, the leaves, the sky now all stood out with a presence and a slight shimmer that suggested life there and perhaps consciousness beyond our ordinary assumption. After seeing this, there would be no way to take a forest for granted again.
So
I,
again, now his worldview, his perception has totally changed.
I looked at Phil. Sit down and put your energy on the philodendron, I said. I'd like to compare. Phil appeared perplexed. I can't do it, he said. I don't know why. I looked at Sarah. Some people can and some can't. We haven't figured it out. Marjorie has to screen her graduate students to see who can do it. A couple of psychologists are trying to correlate this ability with personality characteristics, but so far no one knows. Let me try it, I said. Okay, go ahead, Sarah replied. I sat down again and faced the plant. Sarah and Phil stood at right angles to me. Okay, how do I begin? Just focus your attention on the plant, as though to inflate it with your energy, Sarah said. I looked at the plant and imagined energy swelling up inside it. Then, after a few minutes, I looked over at the two. Sorry, Sarah said dryly. You're obviously not one of the chosen few. I shot a mock frown at Phil. Angry voices from the path below interrupted our conversation. Through the trees, we could see a group of men passing, talking harshly among themselves. Who are those people? Phil asked, looking at Sarah. I don't know, she said. More folks upset with what we're doing, I guess.
क्या हुआ?
Can't hear.
Shivangla, what happened?
I looked. I looked back at the forest around us. Everything appeared ordinary again. Hey, I can't see the energy fields anymore. Some things bring you right down, don't they? Sarah remarked.
Okay, so now this is
Phil
important.
smiled.
Now, as soon as something is depleting, right? Now, again, we come back to the resilience grid, the left side and the right side. Now, anything that puts you on the left side is going to start depleting you, and then your state of consciousness will also shift. So, anything that puts you on the left side is not good, in the sense that it's not raising you up. So, over here, these guys were talking harshly. They pulled him down. His energy shifted. Now he can't see the energy fields anymore.
Phil smiled and patted my shoulder. You can do it again anytime now. It's just like riding a bicycle. All you have to do is see the beauty and then extend from there. I suddenly remembered to check the time. The sun was much higher in the sky, and a light mid morning breeze swayed the trees. My watch showed 7:50 a.m. I guess I had better head back, I said. Sarah and Phil joined me. As we walked, I looked back at the wooded hillside. That's one beautiful place, I said. Too bad there aren't more places like this in the States. Once you see the energy fields in other areas, Phil said, you'll realize just how dynamic this forest is. Look at these oaks. They are very rare in Peru, but they grow here at Vicente. A cut forest, especially one that's been stripped of hardwoods in order to grow pines for profit, has a very low energy field. And a city, except for the people, has a different kind of energy altogether.
Okay, so all cities have their own energy. When previously, what was happening, you see, like in Bombay, when you landed in Bombay, you started to run, but the energy of Bombay is now shifting. When you landed in Delhi, it was all about who am I? Who do I know? Okay. In Bangalore, it was intellectual discussion. You felt like, intellectualization. But the energy in Bangalore is now shifted to the running wala energy. So as soon as you land in Bangalore, you'll find you'll start running. In Calcutta, it's a laid back attitude. So, like that, every city has its own field, its own tasir. And naturally, when you're going into that field, that is going to affect you. Okay, so he says over here very clearly, where were we? Yeah. So, and a city, except for people, has a different kind of energy altogether. So, each city has its own energy field, each person has its own energy field.
I tried to focus on the plants along the path, but the act of walking disrupted my concentration. You sure I'll see the fields again? I said. Absolutely, Sarah replied. I've never heard of anyone failing to duplicate the experience once they've seen them initially. We had a research ophthalmologist come through here once and he got all excited after he learned to see the fields. Turned out he had been working with certain sight abnormalities, including forms of color blindness, and concluded that some people have what he called lazy receptors in the eyes. He had taught people how to see colors they'd never experienced before. According to him, seeing energy fields was just a matter of doing the same thing or waking up to other dormant receptors, something that everyone theoretically can do.
So, again, we are increasing the ability of the eyes to be able to perceive something.
I wished I lived near a place like this, I said. Don't we all? Phil replied, then looked around me at Sarah. Is Dr. Haynes still here? Yes, Sarah said. He can't leave. Phil looked at me. Now there's a guy who's doing some interesting research on what this energy can do for you. Yeah, I said. I talked with him yesterday. The last time I was here, Phil continued, he was telling me about a study he would like to conduct in which he would look at the physical effects of merely being near certain high energy environments, such as that forest back there. He would use the same measurements of organ efficiency and output to see the effect. Well, I already know the effect, Sarah said. Whenever I drive into this estate, I begin to feel better. Everything is amplified. I seem stronger. I can think more clearly and quickly. And the insights I have into all this and how it relates to my work in physics are amazing.
So again, the space can have an effect on you. So when you are in a high energy space, automatically everything in your body system also starts to function better.
What are you working on now? I asked. So, you remember me telling you about the perplexing experiments in particle physics, during which these little bits of atoms appeared wherever the scientists expected them to be? Yes. Well, I've tried to expand this idea a bit with some experiments of my own. Not to solve the problems those guys were working on in subatomic particles, but to explore questions I told you about before. To what extent does the physical universe as a whole, since it is made up of the same basic energy, respond to our expectations? To what extent do our expectations create all things that happen to us? The coincidences, you mean? Yes, think of the events of your life. The old Newtonian idea is that nothing happens by chance, that one can make good decisions can and be prepared, but that every event has its own line of causation independent of our attitude.
So again, Newtonian physics is every action will have a reaction. Okay, but here what we are talking of, even thinking of something is going to change what is going to happen. So that's why we are constantly talking about watch your thoughts. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? Because your thoughts can actually create what you are experiencing.
Does the manuscript talk about any of this? Sarah smiled at me. Of course, that's where we are getting these ideas. She began to dig around in her pack as we walked, finally pulling out a folder. Here's your copy, she said. I glanced at it briefly and placed it in my pocket. We were crossing the bridge, and I hesitated a moment, observing the colors and forms of the plants around me. I altered my focus and immediately saw the energy fields around everything in my view. Both Sarah and Phil had wide fields which seemed to be tinted yellow green, though Sarah's field occasionally flashed with a pinkish color.
So now he's being able to see the colors in the auric field. You missed one paragraph, Shimangla. It says here, after the recent discoveries of modern physics, we may legitimately ask if the universe is more dynamic than before. Perhaps the universe runs mechanistically on a basic operation, but then also subtly responds to the mental energy we project out into it. I mean, why not? If we can make plants grow faster, maybe we can make certain events come faster or slower, depending on how we think. Now, they've done some experiments over here with RNGs, that's random number generators. We've spoken about this before, where they did one experiment where they recorded what the output of a random number generator was 3 or 4 years previously, and they recorded it and kept it. Now, random number generator is like, flipping coins. So they'll project either ones or zeros. Now, if you are flipping a coin 100 times, the probability is that you will get 50 heads and 50 tails. So in the random number generator also, you'll get 50 ones and 50 zeros. But now what they did was no one saw that tape. Okay, so no one actually visualized or actually saw what was on the tape. And then a group of people got together and they focused their energy on the tape and said there should be more ones than zeros. And that was done maybe 3 years later. And when they ran the tape after these people had focused their energy, they found that what these people were focusing on actually manifested in the tape. Now, that proved that what happens is that you can actually create a result in the past from the future. So there is something called future memory. That's another book that I forget the name of the author. She talks about future memory, amazing stuff. Okay. So over here, when they are saying that why can't we affect situations, what is there with our mental energy, which is an actual fact. So that's why watching our thoughts becomes so important.
Both Sarah and Phil had white fields which seemed to be tinted yellow green, though Sarah's field occasionally flashed with a pinkish color. Suddenly, they both stopped and looked intently up the trail. Ahead, about 50 feet, a man walked quickly towards us. A sensation of anxiety filled my stomach, but I was determined to maintain my view of the energy. As he approached, I recognized him. He was the taller of the scientists from the University of Peru, who had asked for directions the day before. Around him, I could detect a layer of red. When
So
he walked up,
red in the aura is basically totally aligned with physicality. Okay. It's the slowest field. So naturally, he's more materialistic in his worldview.
One second. When he walked up to us, he turned to Sarah and condescendingly said, "You're a scientist, aren't you?" "That's right," Sarah replied. "Then how can you tolerate this kind of science? I've seen these gardens and I can't believe the sloppiness. You people haven't controlled for anything. There could be many explanations for certain plants growing larger. Controlling for everything is impossible, sir. We are looking for general tendencies."
So now what this scientist is talking about is pure scientific experiments where everything works in isolation. They attempt to isolate as many parameters as possible. Now, naturally, if two plots are right next to each other, there may be cross pollination. The energy may be seeping into the other plot. So he is complaining that you have not performed the experiments in the way that they should have been performed.
I could detect an edge growing in Sarah's voice, but postulating some newly visible energy that underlines the chemistry of living beings. That's absurd. You have no proof. Proof is what we are looking for. But how can you postulate the existence of anything before you get some proof? The voices of both individuals sounded angry now, but I was only vaguely listening. What consumed my attention was the dynamics of their energy field. When the discussion began, Phil and I had backed up a few feet, and Sarah and the taller man had squatted off, facing each other with a distance of about 4 feet between them. Immediately, both the energy fields had seemed to grow more dense and excited, somehow, as though from an inner vibration. As the conversation progressed, their fields began to intermingle. When one of them made a point, his field would create a movement which seemed to suck at the other's field, with what appeared to be a kind of vacuum maneuver. But then, as the other person made his rebuttal, this energy would move back in his direction. In terms of the dynamics of energy fields, winning the point seemed to mean capturing part of the opponent's field and pulling it into oneself.
So have you got it? Now, when a person attacks you, yeah, they are attempting to suck out the energy from you. And then when you do a rebuttal, you are attempting to suck the energy back inside. So there is no give and give. It's a take and a take. So everyone is grabbing the energy from the other person. So ultimately, what happens? You're using energy also to grab. So both the people will get depleted.
Besides, Sarah was saying to the man, "We have observed the phenomena we are trying to understand." The man gave Sarah a disdainful look. "Then you are insane as well as incompetent," he said, and walked away. "You're a dinosaur," Sarah shouted, which made Phil and me laugh. Sarah, however, was still tense. "These people can make me angry," Sarah said as we resumed our walk along the path. "Forget it," Phil said. "These kind of people come around sometimes." "But why? So many?" Sarah asked, "and why right now?" As we walked up to the lodge, I could see Will at the jeep. The doors of the vehicle were open and the gear was spread out on the top of the hood. He saw me immediately and motioned for me to come over. "Well, looks like I'm about to take off," I said. My comment broke a 10-minute silence, which had begun when I had tried to explain what I had seen happen to Sarah's energy during the argument. Evidently, I had not put it very well, because my comments had provoked only blank stares and had cast us all into a long period of self absorption. "It's been nice meeting you," Sarah said, offering her hand. Phil was looking towards the jeep. "Is that Will James?" he asked. "Is he the guy you're traveling with?" "Yes," I said. "Why?" "I just wondered. I've seen him around. He knows the owner of this place and was one of the early group that first encouraged the research on energy fields here. Come on up and meet him, I said. No, I have to go, he said. I'll see you around here later on. I know you won't be able to stay away. Sarah interjected that she too needed to go and that I could contact her through the lodge. I delayed them for a few minutes, expressing my thanks for the lessons. Sarah's expression grew serious. Seeing the energy, grasping this new way of perceiving the physical world, grows through a kind of contagion. We don't understand it, but when a person hangs out with others who see this energy, usually they begin to see it too. So go show it to someone else.
So now this is another case over here, right? Now suppose you want to learn something. If you are in the presence of people who know that thing, automatically your capacity to learn that thing will get enhanced. Also, I've noticed is if someone is trying to learn something and another person knows how to do it, if that other person who knows touches that the person who's trying to learn, the learning gets enhanced. This I've seen happening over and over in again in many cases.
I nodded and then hurried up to the jeep. Will greeted me with a smile. Are you about ready? I asked. Almost, he said. How did the morning go? Interesting, I said. I've got a lot to talk to you about. You'd better save it for now, he said. We need to get out of here. Things are looking unfriendly. I walked closer to him. What's going on? I asked. Nothing too serious, he said. I'll explain later.
Shimangla?
One second. Things are looking unfriendly. I walked closer to him. What's going on? I asked. Nothing too serious, he said. I'll explain later. Get your stuff. I walked into the lodge and picked up the few items I had left in my room. Will had told me earlier there would be no charge, courtesy of the owner. So I walked down to the desk and handed the clerk my key and walked back outside to the jeep. Will was under the hood, checking something, and he slammed it close as I walked up. Okay, he said, let's go. We drove out of the parking lot, then down the drive towards the main road. Several cars were leaving at the same time. So, what's happening? I asked Will. A group of local officials, along with some scientific types, have complained about the people associated with this conference center. They're not alleging that anything illegal is going on, just that some of the folks hanging around here may be what they call undesirable, not legitimate scientists. These officials could cause a lot of trouble, and that could effectively put the lodge out of business.
So again, whenever someone has a new scientific growth which affects the present people who are in power, they always face a problem. Like Nikolai Tesla faced a huge problem. Royal Raymond Rife, his this thing was burned down. Lab was burned down. So you have many cases like this where people who are in the power and they are running things because of certain uh, you know technologies that they have, they don't like to let any other technology come into the field. So again, naturally, they're putting pressure on this because it's going to shake the fabric of how things are viewed.
I looked at him blankly and he continued. You see, this lodge normally has several groups booked at any one time. Only a small number have anything to do with research associated with the manuscript. The others are groups focused on their own disciplines who come down here for the beauty. If the officials get too ugly and create a negative climate, these groups will stop meeting here. But I thought you said your local officials wouldn't tamper with the tourist money coming into Visient. I didn't think they would. Someone has them nervous about the manuscript. Did anyone at the gardens understand what was occurring? No, not really, I said. They were just wondering why all of a sudden more angry people were around. Will remained silent. We drove out of the gate and turned southeast. A mile later, we took another road which headed to due east towards the mountain range in the distance. We'll be going right by the gardens, Will said after a while. Ahead, I saw the plots and the first metal building. As we came alongside, the door opened and I met eyes with the person coming out. It was Marjorie. She smiled and turned towards me as we passed, our gaze lingering for a long moment. Who was that? Will asked. A woman I met yesterday, I answered. He nodded, then changed the subject. Did you get a look at the third insight? I was given a copy. Will didn't reply, appearing to be lost in thought, so I pulled out the translation and found where I had stopped reading. From there, the third insight elaborated on the nature of beauty, describing this perception as the one through which humans would eventually learn to observe energy fields. Once this occurred, it said, then our understanding of the physical universe would quickly transform.
So again, when we focus on beauty, we can see these energy fields. So appreciation, gratitude, compassion, love, all these things which are on the right side of the grid enhance our ability to perceive these fields.
Should we stop?
Okay, we can stop here. It's 2 pages left, but okay, if we won't be able to complete. Okay, we can stop.
Just mark the place, please.
Anyone, anything?